Have you ever wondered how France's actions in 1958 have shaped the socio-economic landscape of African Francophone countries today? We're about to delve into this captivating question, setting the stage for a profound exploration of France's controversial actions in 1958. Picture this: a series of events that rocked the foundations of several African nations, forever marking their histories. How did these actions echo through the decades, and what impact do they still hold today? Let's unfold this intricate historical tapestry, thread by thread. To understand the depth of this issue, we must first travel back to the era of colonialism. Picture this: the late 19th century, France initiates its imperial expansion, extending its reach to the heart of Africa. This period, marked by the scramble for Africa, saw French flags hoisted over territories stretching from the deserts of North Africa to the dense forests of Central Africa and the vibrant coasts of West Africa. The relationship was far from harmonious. It was a relationship of dominance and submission, of master and servant. France, driven by its hunger for resources, exploited the continent's vast wealth, leaving a profound impact on its social, economic, and political landscapes. These African nations were stripped of their autonomy, their resources, and their dignity, all under the watchful eyes of their French colonizers. The stage was set for an event in 1958 that would rock the foundations of these African nations. 1958, a year that stands as a turning point in the history of African Francophone countries. This was the year France, under the guise of granting independence, enacted policies that would forever change the course of these nations. The French government, in a sly maneuver, introduced the franc of the French community, a currency that was tied to the French franc. This move, while seemingly benign, effectively shackled these newly independent nations to France's economy. Economic independence, a fundamental aspect of any sovereign nation, was curtailed, leading to years of economic instability and underdevelopment. Beyond the economic sphere, France also exerted its influence politically. The French Constitution of 1958, under the premise of a community, allowed France to maintain control over foreign and defense policies of these nations. This meant that the African countries, while technically independent, were still under the strategic control of France. The social fabric of these nations was not spared either. The French language and culture were heavily promoted, leading to a dilution of indigenous cultures and identities. This cultural imperialism continues to influence the social dynamics of these countries, even today. These actions by France in 1958 had profound and far-reaching effects on the African Francophone nations. The repercussions are felt even today, with many of these nations grappling with the consequences of a distorted economic, political, and social landscape. The shadow of 1958 looms large over the African Francophone countries, a reminder of a past that continues to shape their present and future. The aftermath of France's 1958 decisions is still felt today in the African Francophone countries. An indelible mark was left on these nations, a scar that has shaped their socio-economic landscapes in ways that are both profound and complex. Let's consider the economic aspect. Since the fateful year of 1958, these countries have had to grapple with economic policies that were not of their own making, but were imposed on them. These policies have often favored France at the expense of local development, leading to economic stagnation and, in some cases, regression. In the social realm, the influence of France has been no less significant. The cultural identity and social fabric of these nations have been deeply influenced by France. The French language, for instance, continues to be a dominant force in these countries, often overshadowing local languages and cultures. But perhaps the most enduring impact of France's actions is the persistent sense of dependency. Despite gaining official independence, these nations have found it difficult to break free from the shadow of their former colonizer. The influence of France still looms large in their politics, economy, and culture. This is not to say that these nations are without agency or the capacity for change. Indeed, there are growing voices of dissent, calls for greater autonomy, and a reclamation of national identity. but the road to true independence is long and fraught with challenges. The echoes of 1958 still reverberate through the halls of history, shaping the destiny of these African nations. So, what's the takeaway from this tale of historical intrigue? But before we conclude, let's delve into an essential element of the relationship between France and the African Francophone nations in the post-colonial era. This is related to the infamous Pact for the Continuation of Colonization, an agreement that France made some of these countries sign. This pact ensured France's continued economic and political influence over these nations. This was a clever strategic move by France to maintain its hold over the resources of these countries, even after granting them independence. The actions of France in 1958 left an indelible mark on African Francophone nations. The exploitation and suffering endured by these countries due to such actions and agreements like the Pact are stark reminders of the dark shadows cast by colonialism. This chapter in history serves as a stark testament to the repercussions of power unchecked. As we look back at the events of 1958, we realize that the actions of a single nation can ripple through time, forever changing the course of history. If you have found this piece interesting and educating, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more historical and educating videos and contents. Bye for now.